Whether you're an avid property investor or about to buy your first property, why do it alone when you could partner with Australia's best buyer's agent, Director of Pure Property Investment, Property Investment Professionals of Australia board member, and REB Buyer's Agent of the Year, Paul Glossop, can take your portfolio to the next level. Get in touch today to discuss your investment goals. Get one-on-one insight from Paul Glossop. And for the first 100 people, this service is completely free. Head to purepropertyinvestment.com today to schedule your consult with Paul Glossop directly.
Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
Okay, everyone, how are you going? Welcome to the podcast. It's a real privilege for you to join us as we navigate property and property investment. And property is a broad church. There's so many different parts of property. We're all in this together in terms of we're all investing in property or potentially hoping to invest in property. And the best investors I know are always looking to inform and be better informed and educate themselves to make more informed decisions. And as the investor myself, and I share the journey on smart property investment, strategies by and large remain consistent, but the tactics may change as you go down your journey investing in property. And for a lot of people, they might start off small with a couple of, pretty base properties, meat potato type properties, whatever you want to call them, that starts them on the pathway for investing. But as they invest more, they start thinking about other ways in which they can tactically change their focus investing. And it might be getting into finding splitter box or building small developments or, trying to even do some high-rise based stuff. And all investors I know at some point in time will start musing around that. Be at the start of their journey with one or two properties in, or 10, 20 properties when they start thinking more creative or in a very different sort of more sophisticated way to build out their portfolio. Often renovations are a big part for investors, and that's very much how I've gone about manufacturing equity in many of our properties. And if you've been tracking us on our portfolio on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au, we've done some really good renos, most of it done by ourselves, but we have brought in some of the experts to help us out with that. For a lot of investors, renos are a key component of their strategy to help manufacture equity, whether it's to increase the capital value of a property or it might be to increase the rentability of it. Often these can be major structural renovations which need the support of a licensed builder. For other people, they are doing knockdown rebuilds or finding individual blocks and trying to find a builder to deliver on that for the purpose of investment. It can be a minefield for many investors, and I've heard a lot of horror stories of investors getting this absolutely wrong builder at the wrong time with the wrong strategy, with the wrong finance. So hopefully, if you're listening to the Smart Property Investment Show, we can help you make less of those wrong decisions. It's a little bit outside of my pay grade to talk about builders. So I've brought someone into the studio today to give me a hand with this, Lynette Manciameli. She's from Builder Finders, and which is a brokerage, from what I understand, for matching people to builders. Did I get that right, Lynette? Is that what you do?
Yes, that's exactly right, Phil. It's not something that people know a lot about because it's kind of a new, groundbreaking area within sort of the industry, but that it works much like a mortgage broker. So, if you go to your mortgage broker, they have a panel of lenders that they would select from. When you come to me, I have a panel of fully screened, vetted, qualified, licensed builders that they select from. So very much it's a brokerage, same kind of concept as mortgage broking.
Why is it that you normally hear negative stories about builders rather than positive stories about builders? Is that because the people who get the good builders try and keep them to themselves and don't want to share them around?
Possibly, but I think that things can often go wrong within a build. It's a long process, and a lot of different trades are involved in getting a house or a renovation done. So, people stick to the things that go wrong, and that information gets passed along, from one to the other. But then, conversely, when you have a good builder, their work is based a lot on referrals, unless they're using a company such as mine. And then they get, word of mouth spreads like wildfire if you've got a good one. But the bad news travels fast sometimes, I think.
Bad news does travel fast, and for some reason it seems to follow the building game, which is not really reflective of that sector. I know a lot of great builders, and it's a really important part of the economy, whether it's residential or commercial construction. So today, I just wanted to pick your brain and help our investor audience understand some of the tactics and strategies of finding the right builder and then managing the right builder and getting the best outcome working with builders. So if we can cover that off, I think we're doing pretty well. How have people found builders in the old way of doing things? Is it sort of pick up the yellow pages and get a couple of people around for some quotes? And we've got to sort of obviously balance the difference between building a new home versus doing a major renovation on a property, and whether or not they're different builders. We'll have a discussion around that. But what's the old way of doing it, and why is there a new way of doing it?
Okay, so the old way, it's a really good question. And I found myself in that exact position, looking at the old way of how to find a builder. I actually come from a construction family. My father was a builder and a developer. I grew up with dad on tap to do everything. So for me, it was really simple. So if you know a builder or you have a friend that's a tradie, you've got options, and that's the old way. Just ask for referrals or get someone you know to help you. But then when my dad retired and I had no one else to turn to find a builder, because all his mates had retired as well, I sort of went, right, now how do you start? So where do you go? So you go to the yellow pages, or you go to some online directory. I even went on, Fair Trading and had a look at how they suggest to find a builder. And before I started the business, I was baffled that the suggestion was, go to the yellow pages. But how are you going to know if you do such a simple search like that, whether you're going to get a good builder or not? So, then the next evolution is, if you know someone who's used a builder or done a reno or built a new house, you ask them. And mostly people end up using someone that their friend or their neighbour has used. And that's exactly what I ended up doing, some time ago when I did my first post-dad renovation. And it worked out. It was beautiful. It worked out. The job was done well, but it was over time, over budget, and I made a lot of mistakes. And I started to think, how can we find builders? Like, how can we, if you don't know where to start, using a builder broker, was a concept that gave everybody that assistance to find the right builder. And it's not rocket science choosing the right builder, but if you don't know, it's like you don't know what you don't know in terms of what to look out for. So the new way is, use a broker like myself, and I can I do all that background work for you, but we can talk about what I do to find the right builder.
Yeah. So you mentioned like a mortgage broker helps you find a mortgage, a builder broker helps you find a builder. Now, a mortgage broker is paid by the lender for helping a client into that mortgage. How are you paid? How does it work?
It works in exactly the same way. And that's a really important point, because we are really transparent to our clients. The builder pays us a commission. The service is free to the client. So we're like a matchmaking service in that sense. We make sure we match the right builder to the client, and vice versa. We're also, we've got our builders to keep happy. So I'm not going to, if they don't do renovations, I'm not going to put them with a renovation job. So it's matching the right builder to the client, vice versa. And then it's the builder, and we get paid a percentage of the contract build price. So the builder pays us. So that's how we're remunerated that way. Same like mortgage brokers.
And good builders, I imagine, always have a long tail or a steady flow of work coming through. How do you, to get a good builder, you normally need to wait. If a builder is available immediately, often they're not a really good builder. So if you go down this pathway of looking to do a major renovation or building a property from scratch, a new property on a block or a knockdown rebuild, how much planning do you need to have? How long do you need to wait around to find a good builder? Is it 6 or 12 months?
Yeah, that'd be pretty average. But and my builders are the same. You need to wait for them as well. But the thing is, even with a really good builder, sometimes they have a gap in their work at particular times of the year. If they're not really working in January, they might be happy to take something smaller then. Good builders have spaces, and that's why they like to work with me as well, because I find something to fit in with them. But yeah, essentially 6 to 12 months. By the time you do your drafts and your plans and you get your approvals, it can take that long to get started and have your builder going anyway. But yes, of course.
Yeah, so just chatting about that, say you're doing a new build, you obviously need to have approvals. And if you're doing a major renovation, structural renovation, you normally need to get that through council as well. So there is a planning part of this. At what point should you be thinking about your builder if you're considering doing a reno or a new build? Is that at the start of the process, or do you start doing it as you go down the pathway of once you've got your architect and once you got your plan submitted? Do you need to get the builder in before all of that stuff?
I think that the first stage is get your finance sorted, make sure you can do what you want to do, and then get your design sorted. Once you know, you can do it two ways. You can get your builder involved in the design process, and some of my builders have in-house design service, others don't. So then you would work with a building designer or an architect to get all that sorted, and then we go down the builder selection process. So it can happen a little earlier that we get them involved or further down the track, depending on what it is that you're doing.
So I want to have a chat about what's the DNA of a good builder, but we'll just go to a break before we hand back in a moment. Welcome back, everyone. Phil Tarrant, host of the Smart Property Investment Show with Lynette Manciameli, a builder broker, which is a relatively new concept of helping property investors find builders for major renovations or for new build properties. You normally hear about builders going broke, Lynette, the bad ones at least, and whether or not builders they're great at building and not necessarily great business people. But I want to have a chat to you about what you should be looking for in a builder and what's the DNA of a really good builder. And I'd like to sort of put this into a list because when this ends up on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au, people are like, this is the top 5 things to look for in a builder. What would they be, Lynette? Number 1.
Okay, number 1, are they licensed? Make sure that they have a current license and make sure that it is not expired, because they may have it, but it may well have expired or lapsed. I've seen builders, not my builders, but I've seen when I screen and vet them, I've seen they let their license expire, but then they renewed it. First, you want to just make sure they're licensed. Number 1, 100%, are they licensed? The list is exhaustive, so I'll start through my processes of how I vet builders, but references. So if the builder doesn't want to give you references, you'd be wondering why, that'd be a real red flag. You want to be able to get some references from their clients. I'd be looking at their past clients over a period of perhaps the last 5 years. I'd be wanting to talk to their current clients, like people they're actually building for right at this very moment. And I like to talk to their suppliers, to their tradies, to people that are supplying them things, but also their tradies that they've got on site, because that's a real good indicator of, how tight their crew is. If I get an electrician tell me, yes, I've been working with that builder for 5 years, 10 years plus 20 years, even if they've been around for a long time, that's a really good indicator that they're maintaining a stable crew around them and they're working well together. Because if they're no good, that tradie will just go and find another builder to work with. So references of all those things. I like to verify their ID, like simply just ask them to have a look at their driver's license or get a copy of their license, because you want to be able to verify the identity of who you're dealing with. You want to make sure that person, you've met Joe Blow does actually own ABC Construction Company and he is a director or the nominated supervisor of that company. Sounds like really basic 101 reference checking, but asking for an ID. And if they don't want to show you their ID, well, what have they got to hide? You want to know who you're actually dealing with. Communication is really right up there. If they don't communicate well with you, initial transaction of getting to know one another, finding out your suitability with one another, because it does work both ways. Builders need to be comfortable with their client. I know builders that have rejected clients just thinking that they can't work comfortably with them. So you want to make sure that you can, as a client, can communicate well with the builder. They're responsive via on email or over the phone. And you want to be asking the references that question. How do they communicate with you? How frequently do they update you? How often are you on site with them? So communication, absolute key. There's heaps. Got to keep going.
Yeah, keep going. This is all good. All right. More than 5, we're going to do 10.
So we might do. I've got a list, but and I've got a mental list and an physical list. So the contracts, you want to make sure you've got a written contract, and you want to make sure that it's detailed. You don't want to be missing important things in the contract, because that will also help variations to not be an issue when you're going down the track. So when you're talking to their clients and you're getting these reference checks, ask about variations. Say to them, were there many variations along the path? And time again, my good reference checks on my builders will say, yep, there were variations, but they were initiated by the client, which is very common. If they're initiated by the builder, there's your red flag. You want to make sure there's less variations. And if you've got a nice tight contract, you can know exactly what you're in for and what you can be expecting to finish with. Quotes, if you're getting quotes and some quotes are substantially lower than others, there'd be a red flag. I'd be wondering why and be asking more questions about the inclusions of that quote and following that detail. Reviews are really important. And when I say reviews, I'm not talking references, I'm talking reviews, online reviews. Now, we live on an internet world, so I'd be just hopping online, being a bit of a Google detective. Things like looking for reviews on Google, on Houzz, product review for, bigger project builders. There's a whole stack of reviews on there. And going through all of those and seeing what you can find. You want to make sure the company that you're dealing with is solvent. So you can really easily just do an insolvency check online, make sure they haven't got any insolvency notices registered with ASIC. And about that, checking their company, making sure that, they check their ABN, check their company details. I do creditor watch reports, making sure they haven't had any court default judgments against them, any mercantile inquiries. There's no credit collection companies chasing after them. You can see that in a credit watch report. All these things you get online. You want to verify their work as well. It's nice to talk to references and find out what they build, but get a few addresses. Go out and check it out and verify what they've done. You can do that in person if possible, which would be preferred, but then you'd be verifying what they've done by looking at their website, look at their socials, check out their Facebook, their Instagram. Good builders are all getting involved in, promoting themselves in that way. And it gives them, there's visibility. You can see what they're doing, get the addresses of where they're working, go out and have a look. Talk to the neighbours, see what they're like. It's always nice to say, so, how good are they at getting rid of all the rubbish on site, or how respectful are the builders? Gives you an idea of what you're going to be working with. Do they build on time? Do they build to your budget? These are all the type of questions you want to be asking. Are they a member of a building association like the HIA or the Master Builders Association? That indicates there's a degree of professionalism and they're agreeing to a code of ethics and a framework for working fairly with the client. Lastly, and this is something that you can't really quantify, but once you've done all of this, you kind of got to go with your gut. You get a good feel of, by talking to all these people, by doing all these checks, what is this person like? And that gives you a good gut feel of, how that's going to go forward. Because it's a massive decision to build. It's spending, if it's a renovation, tens or hundreds of thousands, but, if you're building a brand new home, you could be well into the mills. So you want to make sure you checked all these things and check them out thoroughly.
So imagine all builders aren't created equal, and there'll be certain builders who are really good for new builds, and there's other builders who are really good for renovation type work. How do you work out who's right for you on that basis? If you're going down a structural renovation, what's going to make them unique to someone who just builds brand new houses for a living?
Often they specialise. So there are many builders that will do everything. They just have to take any kind of work. But if you're doing specifically like remedial type of work, you want to make sure you're getting a builder that specialises in remedial work. If there's some structural remediation that's required. But there are builders that really just like doing renovations. Some that don't want to touch it because you unearth all sorts of problems in a renovation of an existing home potentially. And so finding the right builder to do your work is critical in that sense, because they will spend more of their time and being more specialised in that style of construction work. So that's where I come in and can match the right person to the right builder, because I know what the builders are doing and I know what they're specialising in.
Yeah, and working with builders is an art form in itself. Once you've actually found the builder that's right for you, to actually get them through or work together with them through the delivery of a project, we could be upwards of a couple of years, depending on what you're building. It requires a bit of tact and sophistication. I want to have a chat about that, Lynette. We'll just go to a break beforehand. Back in a moment. Welcome back, everyone. Phil Tarrant, host of the Smart Property Investment Show with Lynette Manciameli. Now, in a former life, I've been a builder's labourer when I was a university student and a bit of a vagrant travelling around the world. It was always easy work to pick up, getting on the end of a shovel or a broom. So I have worked on a number of different building sites and understand builders. I've never been a builder, but they're wired a particular way. And a lot of people do clash with builders, so they don't really understand how to sort of work with a builder. So let's have a chat about that. How do you get the best out of your builder, Lynette? Like, what do you need to do to make sure that they see you as a person who is a good person rather than someone who is more of a nuisance? And you don't want to be on that other side because it just leads to conflict.
It's all about communication, I think. It's like, you want to make sure that you're communicating your desires really clearly, like getting a really detailed scope of work in conjunction with your plans, your drawings, are going to help you avoid any conflict with the builder and not getting it right. You just need to communicate. They need to communicate with you as well. That's why I was saying a red flag to me is finding a builder that doesn't communicate well, because if a problem arises, it's all going to fall apart. So, finding a builder that communicates well and both really articulating clearly what you want to one another is the go. And that's why I'm saying before, do your reference checks. You want to find out what kind of person you're dealing with And you get that information from past and current clients, and that will help you make sure you're selecting someone that's going to be open with communication. I don't put anybody on my panel that I can't talk to, that I can't communicate to, that I'm not comfortable with, because if I feel that way and I can't communicate with them, there's no chance that my clients are going to have a good experience. So that part is vetted for my clients. But, if you're selecting a builder directly yourself and not using a builder broker, you just need to have a lot of preliminary conversations with them. A red flag for me was I had one builder that wanted to join the panel, and we had a phone meeting, and I called and he was not available, or he'd forgotten about the meeting. So that's fine, life happens. And we scheduled another meeting, and then same thing happened. He was with a real estate agent at the time, and I said, he called me back 5 minutes later, and I said, I just need to stop you here. I can't even go through this process with you, because if you can't be there for me on 2 occasions, how do I know you're going to be there for my clients? And he's like, oh, yes, I'd always be there for a client. I'm like, you know what? You're not going to communicate well with me. You're not going to communicate well with my client. So if those kind of things happen, if they're not on time for the meeting or the call, it's kind of a red flag that the communication is going to break down somewhere through the process. But needless to say, I didn't have any further conversation with that builder, and he's not on my panel. But it's a simple things like that you've got to look out for. They're almost really obvious, but unless you sort of articulate them and they become more apparent to you, then you don't notice it so much.
Yeah, it's true. And things can come off the rails, and often good communication is critical to keeping things on the rails. But where do you find it largely goes wrong for people when they're in a building contract, whether it's for a reno or a new build for an investment property? I imagine it's around finance or variations. You mentioned that beforehand, or it's around sort of delays, whether it's around, the quality of work. These are things where things can happen immediately. You got a problem, or things just slowly and subtly turn into an issue, and then you end up in a big stink with a builder. How do you mitigate or combat that stuff other than just good communication, financial payments and stuff? It's pretty structural. You should be able to get through that, right?
Yeah, that kind of thing should be really structured. Like if a builder was suddenly asking you to pay a progress payment outside of the schedule, there's an issue with the builder right there. Like all that stuff should be documented in the contract, and you should know exactly when payments are due and progress payments are going to be expected by the builder. To be honest, I don't have these major issues with my builders because I'm really careful with selection. Going in and selecting at the beginning is going to stop you having any problems on the other end. I've had in the past had clients, use builders where they're demanding payment, well before it was scheduled to be paid, and it just causes conflict. It causes uncomfortable feelings between you and your builder, and problems arise. And how do you deal with those? How do you deal with any conflict in life? You've got to resolve it, and it's really uncomfortable. But if you can select a good builder that I know I'm harping on the communication, but if you select a good builder who just seems like a genuinely decent person, those kind of conflicts aren't going to arise. You're going to have smoother sailing.
And we're talking about the builder itself, and sometimes the builder is actually on the tools banging in nails and stuff, but often it's not. They've got a good crew of people. You might have a major project manager or site manager who would coordinate their own crew, but also coordinate all the other trades, sparkies and plumbers and gyp rockers, this sort of stuff. So for those of our audience that aren't familiar how a building site works, and we're talking renos or even a new build, a lot of the work would be done by the building company itself, but they'll outsource a whole bunch of stuff. And these are the tradies who, often are your biggest, to your point, Lynette, the biggest insight into what it's like to work with a builder. Are they getting paid on time? That's a really good point. How happy are they to rock up to work? Because when people start getting annoyed and jobs get half finished, that you end up with problems. So how do you, as an investor, whether you're doing a reno or a new build, how do you keep the rest of the team sweet? How do you keep them happy, other than the builder itself? So the guys and girls who are doing the work, is there any tricks or tips you've got there?
Well, I don't get involved on site. So I select the builder for the client, but I'm not a builder or an engineer. I don't get involved in keeping the site going. That is definitely the builder's job. And so I don't have that knowledge, so I can't sort of answer that question directly. But good builders are the ones that are really organised. They're the ones that keep their crews tight, that keep everything working, on schedule. One trade follows another trade in and out and keeps the job going on really smoothly. Organisation is massive, and if you can, I didn't mention that before. If you can sense that your builder has a method of organisation, that is really clear and concise, that's going to keep the job running perfectly. I have one builder actually that uses a system that's on an app to communicate everything that's happening between the tradies and the client, and everyone is on the same page and gets the information communicated. So they're using technology to their advantage as well now. But organisation by the builder. The builder, he or she, are the person that are running this show, that are keeping those trades in check. And by speaking to those tradies before you get into the contract with the builder, you're going to know how well they work together. You're going to get a sense and a feel for what your builder's like, but how your project's going to run. So, looking for tradies that have been working with that builder for some time. If they're saying to you things like, we've done several projects together, you're going to get a feeling that ship's going to be run quite tightly and smoothly. But so I can't really answer about how I don't get involved in management.
Being on site myself or renos I've run, the occasional bacon egg roll and a coffee often doesn't help the tradies, swing by, say good day, even if they're working on a Saturday morning, cooking up a bit of a barbie. You always ask the builder first, but that normally goes down pretty well.
100%.
Or a slab of beer on a Friday afternoon, a few long necks.
That was going to be my next sentence. I've done that on my own renos. Definitely get that hot pot of coffee going, the smell wafting out the front door. If it's a reno and you're there living in the home while it's happening. But Friday afternoon beers, builder approval. Perfect for the tradesman. Yeah,
it's absolutely brilliant. And these are little things. And if you go down the pathway as an investor to build a new property or do a knockdown rebuild or, a major extension, or even if it's just splitting and building something, get involved as much as you want to get involved, but don't get in the way would be my recommendation. There's a real fine balance between the two. And, builders often just want to get on with it, a good builder, without too many disruptions, because they'll be on schedule. They'll be very thorough and leveraging technology, as Lynette said. You can even be part of that and you can get updates, no doubt. So get involved because it'll help with your education, but don't get in the way is absolutely critical. Lynette, thanks for your time today. I've really enjoyed the chat. So lots of tips. Go and check out smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. There's lots of information on there around how you can choose a builder. But if it's a bit too much of a minefield, there are services available now like building brokers who can help you through that way. So thanks for your time today and your insights, Lynette. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Remember, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. You can subscribe there as well so you can receive the newsletter every single morning about property markets right across Australia, and also how you can maximise your strategies and your tactics as a property investor, including renos and new builds. Remember, social media, Smart Property HQ, if that's how you like to get your information to keep connected and informed. We'll be back again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
Propertyology regards right now as a very exciting time for investing in Australian real estate. There are some fantastic opportunities that Propertyology can help you take advantage of before buyers re-emerge from their coronavirus cocoons. Propertyology has a national focus. Now more than ever, experience and knowledge are the most valuable currency. Propertyology has that in spades. To find out how Propertyology's multi-award-winning buyers agents can help you prosper, contact them now at propertyology.com.au.